Welcome back to Beholder to No One, a D&D podcast. Today we are here with Kieran of the Dark Peaks.
Woo!
Welcome back. Technically, this is the second time we've recorded the same episode.
Lovely to speak to you again. At least this time I got, I got a practice round. I got to practice my answers the first time.
Yeah, now I just have to remember what those questions were. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you created. We were talking about three different books, right?
Technically 4, if you want to include the original system that we created as well.
Okay, so 4 different systems, 3 of which are available on DM's Guild.
One of which is available for free on DriveThruRPG and through Itch as well, which is called, funnily enough, the Dark Peaks, which is where we got our name as well. We started off as developing an original system called the Dark Peaks, which is it's a bit of an old school Renaissance style game, so it's very brutal. We call it a blood-soaked RPG because we've yet to get a character to last through 5 sessions. It's quite. We were trying to create quite a rules, not rules light, but like mechanics light. We wanted to not have multiple rolls of the dice, and we wanted to make sure that the game remained pacey throughout. So we created a rule system to support that. In April, we released that to the whole big wide world as a what you want on Twitch. Sorry, not Twitch, Itch, and the Dark Peaks. Sorry, not the Dark Peaks, but on DriveThruRPG as well.
Mm-hmm.
So then I got distracted and I started doing D&D books to see how they went.
So the book that you sent me was the Brightlance Tome of Knighthood, which creates a whole new class called the Chivalric Knight, correct?
Yes, correct.
Just reading through it, that seems like a lot of fun. I like what you did with it, where you made it more focused on that feel of knights, which we did mention in the last episode, but it's like you mentioned there's other classes that almost hit the bill, but not quite. They're like they're not exactly there.
Yeah, so we looked at a lot of the knight classes, and even with Tasha's coming out, we had a look at a lot of the different knight classes, and we decided that some of them were pretty good, but none of them, even like the Rune Knight, hit what I thought and what my collaborators thought. Like, it didn't hit the idea of this Arthurian knight, this sort of knight in shining armor, committed to and justice and basically chivalry. So what we decided to do is we decided to create a brand new character class, which was the Chivalric Knight character. And what the Chivalric Knight character would do is they would act in that very chivalric way. So we wanted to create a class where you could basically play King Arthur, or you could play Lancelot or Gawain or Galahad, or one of the Knights of the Round Table. Because looking through the game, there isn't a class like that. There isn't a class which sort of plays like anything other than a fighter, like a fighter subclass, which is fine. I mean, if you want to play a fighter subclass, but we wanted to go a bit deeper than that, not just create a subclass, but create an entire idea to create this character as the idea of the chivalric ideal. Now we're very aware that this character never existed in reality. Like, we're very aware that this is the storybook knight. And actually, we had a big discussion as part of the team whether we called it the chivalry book knight, because they're not based on anything like reality. They're very much the ideal, but we play D&D. It's a fantasy world. We can play with impossible ideals, right? So that's what we wanted to do. We basically wanted to play Lancelot, and so we did. And so we created it. We, in particular, the quest and the heraldry system, because we looked at knights and we thought, well, what's one of the defining features of knights? And it's this incredible heraldry that they build, the coat of arms with the colors and the shapes and all of that. It's so like evocative of this character class. And with that character class, we integrated that mechanically, because otherwise, what's the point in having a unique character class with this if it's just for show, if it's just for flavor? I don't mind things just being for flavor. But I always find it's more rewarding and it gets more used when the players don't just have a flavor reason for doing it, but a mechanical reason to engage with this. So, would you like me to quickly summarize how it works for the listeners?
Sure.
So what you do is you basically have two leveling systems. One of them is your conventional XP leveling system, and that's got everything that you would have for a normal D&D character. So for a normal D&D character, we have levels, we have abilities, we have ideal points which activate your abilities. Ideal points are a bit like a battlemaster points or a monk's key points. They work in a very similar manner. You use them to access the knight's abilities, of which they have many. But the quest system, that quest system, it lets your knight build their heraldry. Now, the heraldry on the very basic level is a free magical item every time you complete a quest. The thing is, you get to choose as the player what that magical item is. Now, if you want the abilities of a knight but never play through the heraldry, the knight is a perfectly playable class. They work in a very similar way as a fighter with a lot of cool, special rules. But if you involve yourself in the heraldry and the story element of these characters, you can generate some pretty unique magical items, because every time you complete a quest, you get a rank. So you go from a squire to a knight errant, to a knight, to a knight marshal, to a knight grand commander, and they build in sort of epic power as you continue to rise to the top of your order.
So are those items different than the banners, or?
So the item is it's kind of like an item that you choose the ability for. So when you first become a knight, you get your first piece of heraldry. Your heraldry, you get to choose. It's a shield, and you get to choose the color and how it's divided. The other thing which you get is you get an ability that goes with it, which you can apply to a sword or a shield or a piece of armor. And what that does is it at the very low level, it can just be like gives you +1 to hit. It's very similar to the uncommon magic items, but the heraldry builds. So every time you add an element to the heraldry, you build the power of your heraldry. So you get to add another ability. So when you become when you move from knight errant to a full knight, which is like level 10, I think, you get to add a bunch of other abilities to your heraldry, and then you get to be a knight marshal, and you add another bunch of abilities. And by the end of it, you have some abilities where you can summon, if you're a knight grand commander on a quest like level 18 or level 19, as one of your abilities, you can summon your order to come and fight with you. You can just be like, okay, we can't do this on our own. I need all my knights with me. And because you're a knight grand commander, your heraldry gives you the ability to summon a knight marshal, and if you're willing to throw the ideal points into there, a knight marshal, 3 normal knights, and a whole bunch of squires. So if you need an army in a rush, you can just summon your order, because you're the leader of a bunch of knights, and that's what you should be able to. And that's one of the abilities a knight grand commander has. And again, it all comes back to if you complete the quests. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to give people a reason to complete quests like knights do.
Yeah, I actually really love that, and it gives you the ability to be like, nah, I just like to min-max. I just like the class features or for flavor. So you could just be a knight who's a squire and doesn't really want to go further. You're just like, nah, I'm a squire. It's fine. You're a squire forever. But if you wanted the story and your DM was willing to add that to the campaign, then honestly, why wouldn't you?
Well, that's it. I mean, I like to think, and I play as a knight in one of our campaigns, and I've run a knight one shot, and we're planning to run another knight one shot very soon. Would you like to know what it's called? Because we're very proud of the name.
Of course.
It's going to be 12 hours. From 7 p.m. in the evening to 7 a.m. in the morning, a single adventure played by an entire crew of knights, and it's going to be called the All Night.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we were so proud of it when we came up with that. So hopefully we'll be streaming that one. So if you're interested, I will send you the details for the
Yeah, and I will.
all night one shot.
Once you have that information, I will definitely shout it out on the Twitterverse with be like, if you liked this episode, go check this out.
Please do. I would very much appreciate that.
Of course. And the book also has a couple of monsters added to it, like the Half-Knight Hellbeast or the Grand Marshal. So that adds a little bit of flavor.
Oh yeah, so a lot of the stat blocks. So the book is actually over 100. It's 115 pages long, and the character description is only like the first 8 pages. The rest of the book is like our own little additions to the lore of the Forgotten Realms, because our knights are based in the Forgotten Realms. So we wanted to create knightly organizations that represent that. So there's 4 different knightly organizations. Each of those has got the stat blocks that go with it. And then at the end, the 5th section is creating your own knightly order. So, and then we've got a lot of generic stat blocks that just go with that as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I mean, it's not even like, it's $14.99 on DM's Guild. So you get 115 pages, which is a steal for that price. You have some new backgrounds. You have, which I always love me some new backgrounds.
Well, we have 4 entire knightly orders in there. I mean, we've got the Banahan Knights, who are your classic questing knights, riding across the realm, righting wrongs, and saving innocent dragons from terrible maidens. You know, that kind of thing. You've got the Half Knights, and that's the chapter I wrote in terms of background, who are cursed knights who have been cursed, and they're basically knights of the Caribbean. So during the day, they look like normal knights. During the night, they look like terrible undead revenants. You've got the Windborn, which my comrade in writing, my colleague Gemma, wrote, who are knights that live in airships and ride monsters, flying monsters, which is really cool. And then you've got Cynthia, who wrote the section on the Sea Knights, and they are knights who live in the at sea, and they're very sort of Polynesian inspired. These in the way that they operate, and they're a wonderful story of, and that in itself probably has the best narrative of all the chapters, and that's the story of the Sea Knights, how they start off as this very traditional, upstanding European knightly order, and then they almost all die, and then by learning to adapt and become part of the environment in which they're in, and integrating that into their practices, they remain sort of loyal to the rules of chivalry, but they don't. But they also change completely into this very unique knightly order, and it's fantastic. Like the writing in it is, even though like obviously I wrote a section of it, and also it's published under our name, I would say that the writing of it, especially in the background, is really excellent. It's really very, very good, and the reviews we've got have been very, very positive for it as well.
Yeah, I see that you have 5 stars for 2 of the 3, and then like 4.7 for the other, which is still really great. So that's awesome. And I know that you said last time that this was I know that you obviously just mentioned multiple authors. So this book was created with you and 3 or 4 other people, and then artists as well.
Yeah, so this one was pretty. It was the largest team I've ever worked with. So we had 4 creators. We had 4 writers. We had 3 artists. We had 12 playtesters, and then we had some sort of system and mechanics consultants as well. So we probably worked with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like it was a really big operation. It was like a team of 15. And what was wonderful is we lived all over the world as well. Like we had Clint, who lives in Canada, Cynthia, who lives in the US, she's in Kentucky. We had Gemma that lives in Malaysia. We have me that lives in Malaysia. Our editor is based in Singapore. Like one of our artists was based in Australia. The other one was based in like the UK. So we had this massive international team bringing all of these ideas together, and it was just a pleasure. It was an absolute pleasure to write. It was a pleasure to write and a pleasure to to get to finish. And to be honest, I think it's probably our best book. I mean, I'm sure every publisher says that about their
latest book.
about their latest book. Yeah, I think I'm supposed to say that, but quite genuinely, I think it's our best book.
Well, when you put that much time and effort and energy into it, then I guess it's not bound to be good, but when you take the time to get the right people to do it, that's always going to more than likely going to provide a better product. For example, I could make something by myself, but if I hire an artist and hire an editor and hire somebody to announce it and things like that, like, I'm going to do better if I do those things because they have that skill set that I definitely do not have.
Yeah, and that was part of it. I mean, this kind of book, I could have written the character stuff on my own, but I still would have had to work with people to check out the mechanics and playtest it and balance it and all of that.
Right.
But yeah, just bringing in those other people was just so wonderful, because what you start with, your ideas at the beginning of the process are completely like, they very rarely, like, you can, when you start a creative process like this, you've got two ideas. One is, this is my idea and I want people to make it happen, or this is my idea but like, it's only an idea, which means let's work with other people and see what you get. And generally that approach works so much better, because you get something far more collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
far more broader, that's bad English, far more broad, but you also get something wonderful. And this book is genuinely wonderful.
I think I mentioned this to you just before, so this might be a repeat story for you, but when I started working on, this isn't a completed project at all, it's just something I'm doing for fun. It's a new game system, and I had a friend come in and we were just kind of bouncing ideas, and I had like this very set thing I wanted to do with building a town, and I wanted to base it off of Ultimate Campaign in Pathfinder, which I absolutely adore, but I wanted to tweak it just a little bit to be something more heavily focused on the city building and survival aspect of it all versus the adventuring part. And he goes, well, are they working together as a team, or are they all working in their own castle? And I'm like, well, damn it, now I want both. Like, I want there to be a team option because that's what I ultimately envisioned, but the fact that you could have you could add like a Risk-esque vibe where you have different castles and they each have their own goals, secret goals, but they can work together as well, was kind of intriguing, and I'm like, oh, now I want that too. Crap.
and that creates all kinds of issues with, like, oh well, I've just created this and I'll have to change some mechanics, but your idea is improved, and if you can make it work mechanically, and then you've got a collaborator, so you can just say like, oh well, if we do that, here's some mechanics, what do you think, how would it work for you? And then you engage in that creative discourse, and it's the discourse which is so much more exciting.
Yeah, and sometimes you get kind of stuck in your own ideas, so you're like, well, this is what I see, and then there's just like a freaking roadblock in the way, and you're like, nope, there's nothing beyond that. This is it. This is all I see. And then somebody else comes over and they're like, if you just look over there to the left, there's a what is the freaking word?
A breakthrough, a stick of dynamite to blow up the roadblock.
Well, I was thinking of like a separate route. It's like a alternate route, I think is what is it, alternate route?
Yeah, go with that.
Yeah, so there's an alternate route, and it's just like, no, if you just look over there, there's another way you can go to get over this part and then come back
There's
to
a
it.
shortcut.
And sometimes you need that. Shortcut, that's the word. It's been a long
yeah,
day.
I know. I agree with you completely. That's the joy of doing collaborative work. That's the joy of it, to not have to do it all yourself. Like and the other thing is, like, if you want to do it all yourself, you absolutely can. I did that. I wrote, so our second book, which has been our most popular book, is an adventure book called The Blizzard Vexing Sword, which retails on Dungeon Masters Guild for a simple sum of $7.99, and that is a really excellent adventure. Like, and again, I know I'm not supposed to blow my own trumpet so much and say, oh, all these books are amazing, even though they are. But that is basically mine. I didn't work. I worked with an artist on that one, just to provide some internal illustrations. But beyond that, I made it up. I play tested it. I wrote it all myself, and then I published it. And that is completely my work. And it's a different.
And this is the Blizzards of Axe and Sword.
Yes, the Blizzard of Axe and Sword.
The cover art is absolutely stunning. Just looking at the cover.
I know, right? That's not actually mine. I didn't commission that either. That's actually by Grim Press. I'm a big believer in using stock art, and I use a lot of stock art. Recently, for our sci-fi book, which is coming out next year, I've moved from using stock art as materials for original artwork, but for fantasy in particular, I'll just use straight up stock art because some of it's amazing. People like
I mean, you can tweak stock art and make it your own very easily. If you like, that's what I do. It's like find the free stuff or things that even if it's cheap, and then tweak it. And if it's stock art and you can pay for it and you don't need to do any tweaking, bam.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I would say just on a professional basis, check the terms of the stock art license because they don't all have stock. They don't all have the same license.
Commercial use?
Well, it's not so much commercial use; it's commercial modification. So, for example, if you work with Grim Press, they won't let you modify their work. You can use it in a document and you can reshape it so it fits, but they won't let you actually modify it because you have the right to use, but you don't have the right to change it.
I usually used Pixpay,
Oh yeah,
which I don't do this at a professional level. It's mostly like, hey, I'm looking for like advertisement type stuff just for me to shout out something. So I'll use Pixpay, which is free.
I use Shutterstock a lot. Like there's a lot of stuff on Shutterstock that I use. But yeah, just in terms of professional creation, just check the license before you use it, because you don't want to cut up somebody else's art when you're not really meant to, because it's not really respectful to the artist, is it? And those guys don't get paid enough. Like, yeah,
that's fair.
You spend hours creating something, and then someone in their book's like, "Oh, I don't like it," and then just cuts it in half. Like, it's not very polite. People, be nice to your artists. They are magicians.
Yes, I know that when I make characters, I find like character art on Google and like I try to find who the original artist is and I can't. But this is for like home games. This isn't for like public games or anything like that. But I found one. I'm playing a Grimalkin, which is like basically a big fae cat, and I found this beautiful picture, absolutely stunning black cat picture with like these beautiful like blue galaxy eyes. And the only thing I tweaked on it was I added an earring to its ear. That was it. That's all I changed. And I found an earring and I added it and I changed the tint to match like that blue tint of the rest of the thing. So it didn't just look out of place. But my character had an earring for their arcane focus. And this cat had like a necklace on. So I was like, well, we'll just make the necklace her bag of holding, so to speak.
Oh, nice.
And then the earring was her arcane focus, so she didn't have to carry anything. And she just looks like a normal cat who is a sorcerer and can cast subtle spell and careful spells, so she could just go pretty much anywhere and nobody knows that she is the one that just cast fireball.
That's a really cool idea. I guess you can get away with a lot more photo like modification when it's a home game. When you're not trying to sell this stuff and you're not saying, I'm going to try and make money off the back of somebody else's work.
For sure. Do not steal don't steal, but like specifically don't steal if you're gonna make money off of it.
Yeah, like whatever you do, don't steal, especially like there's without getting into the ethics of it too much, I would say there is no good reason to steal somebody else's artwork. Like it's not right and it's not fair. Like you're effectively especially because most artists are self-employed and that's what they use to survive.
Yeah.
They generally don't have other sources of income if they're professionals. So whatever you do, like you steal somebody's art and you're literally taking like money away from them. You're taking food out of their mouth, right? And most stock art in particular is cheap. Like it's cheap. So, pay the money, feel better about it. Do it properly.
And if you're doing it just for like on like Twitter or Facebook or things like that, and it's not like being used in something you're making money off of, if you're putting a piece of art up that you're like, oh, this is so cool, it gives me the vibes of my character or things like that, find out who the artist is and give them a tag or link where you found the original art. A quick Google search and a little bit of digging can get you really far with not every piece, but quite a few pieces if you try with a little bit of effort.
Agreed.
I mean, there have been pieces that I found that I'm just like, I have no idea. Like, I go back like 15 years and it's like all Pinterest.
And I hate Pinterest, but you can still do it. You can still go and find the artist. And out of respect for the artist, if you like their art, you should definitely spend 5 minutes finding out who they are. Because also, like, it's in your own interest as well, because you might discover that they've done some really, like, other really awesome art.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Brightlance's Tome of Knighthood, and the Blizzard of Axe and Sword. So that was, and those two, and then before that we did a book called the Whitefair Adventurers Guide, which is me putting together my campaign setting, the setting that I ran a campaign into a more sort of formal, sellable game system for people to enjoy. Yeah, it is fun. Like, that one's actually really fun. It's got some nice backgrounds, some nice story hooks. It's got a campaign system and a terrible evil villain called Dorakali, who I'm very proud of. And also the other thing is it's got some really good rules for environments as well. So if you feel like having a snowball fight, I've got the best rules. Now, I checked out many different rules for snowball fights in D&D, and I can say conclusively my snowball fight rules are the best.
I see that you also have rules for ice lakes.
Oh, yeah.
And lizards and stuff like that, and 3 new subclasses.
Yes.
The Frost Strider.
Sorry, I keep interrupting.
You're fine. The Deep Domain and the Stormcaller.
Yeah, so we have 3 new subclasses. We have 2 new ancestries as well. So you can play as a were llama, which is kind of fun. Everyone likes the were llamas. You can play as the Frostkin, who are they're kind of somewhere between an official ancestry and an unofficial ancestry. I had to put them in there because they are different to normal human beings because of their environment. But and there's no subclasses for humans. You can't have like an ancestry subclass. So we created them as an official ancestry class. But yeah, that one's fun. There's rules for dog sleds as well. So dog sleds and sled chases and ice lakes and ice climbing as well.
It's always
so ice climbing is always exciting. But yes, the snowball fights on the final page are what you buy the book for. They are the best. So yeah, and actually, do you know what? The snowball fights are so good that I'm using them in another game under a different set of rules, and we're using them for fist fights instead.
Interesting. I'm not really sure. I guess I'd have to look at the snowball fight rules to see how that works.
It's really simple. So, would you like me to tell you what they are?
Sure.
All right. So, here we go. The snowball fight rules go like this. You throw a snowball at someone. So it's just like normal combat. You throw a snowball at someone, and if you hit them, it does D3 damage, right? Except it's not really D3 damage, it's D3 worth of snow. At the end of each turn, you take a constitution check to find out if you're too cold to continue. And the DC of the constitution check is how much snowball damage you've taken in the past.
Interesting.
So everyone normally takes 2 or 3 snowballs, but once the DC is like 9 or 12, most characters are just like, no, forget this. I'm too cold. And then they just kind of give up. And it's the one at the end who looks like a snowman at the end who's normally the winner. And that's it.
So you would have, I'm assuming if you were like a Goliath or something and you didn't get affected by cold, you could just be the constant winner of snowballs fighting.
If you have resistance to cold, it works the same way. Yeah, because you'll only take like one snowball damage every turn.
Everybody's like, no, I'm not going to fight you. You're just, it's not fair.
Yeah. Do you remember that last time we buried you in a snowdrift and you weren't affected by it? It's not fair to have a snowball fight with you.
He's like, well, me against all of you. Oh, okay. Well, maybe one
time. And you still lose.
Still lose.
Yes. So
it's like, damn it.
So that's exactly what the snowball fight rules are, and I'm very proud of them.
That is fun. I'll have to point those out to my friend who is running us currently through Frost Maiden.
Yes.
Rim of the Frost Maiden.
Well, what I will do then, if you want to, I will share them. You can share them in the show notes. I'll take a quick screenshot from the book, and I'll put them, and you can put them in the show notes as a freebie for everyone to enjoy.
Sure. See, guys can never say I didn't get you. So, what made you decide originally to create supplemental books like this, other than just like, I mean, I guess we kind of described that it was like the first one you wrote was the Whitefair. Well, the first one you wrote was the Dark Peaks.
Yes.
So, what made you decide to go that route versus just like recording it or doing it for yourself and not sharing it with the public?
Let's see. How to phrase this in a way that isn't arrogant or doesn't sound arrogant. I thought they were worth sharing, and honestly, I thought they were worth paying for, because I looked at the stuff on Dungeon Masters Guild, and I was like, some of it's good, some of it is not very good. I think I can do better than the not very good part, and if I can do better than that, let's give it a go. Let's see if it works. So the Dark Peaks was the original system, and what happened was I had time between writing the full rule book, which is something I did, which I was working on, but obviously artwork, because I was commissioning a lot of original artwork for it. A lot of that takes a long time. The lead-in for the art in particular is a long process. So it probably took me 4 or 5 months to get all the artwork lined up for the Dark Peaks. By the way, plug, the Dark Peaks, Deepmore, which is the name of the book. The full rule book is coming out on DriveThruRPG next month, probably the first or second week of December. That will be coming out. So what I thought was, well, I've written this, and I enjoyed writing this, and I wrote this, and it was pretty well received. But I don't want to spend all my time developing a new system when I've already got one system on the way. So I thought, well, existing systems are always fun to write for, because you don't have to worry about the mechanics so much. So let's use the time that I've got waiting for this art to create something else. And what I decided to create was content for the Dungeon Masters Guild. And then I kind of got distracted by doing the Dungeon Masters Guild stuff, and kind of work on the Dark Peaks slowed down. So yeah, don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing right now, to be honest, but there you go.
I mean, as long as you're having fun.
Oh yeah, no, huge amounts of fun. Like huge amounts of fun.
That's what matters.
Yeah, well, I've met all these amazing people. I've been featured on different podcasts. You know, my books have been well reviewed. I've even sold a few of them. I think The Blizzard of Axe and Sword is now a silver bestseller, which I'm very proud of.
Nice, very nice.
And the Whitefair Adventurers guide is a copper bestseller now as well. So I got two minor bestsellers on Dungeon Masters Guild, and I met all these amazing people and wrote like the Whitefair Adventurers guide. And yeah, it's just been a really exciting process of creation. And I think I really enjoyed it. Like, nothing about it, even though it's a lot of work, nothing about it has been unpleasant, apart from some of the mean people on Reddit. But I'm fine with that. They didn't hurt me, honest.
That's kind of, I mean, that kind of goes with hand in hand with podcasting or writing, publishing a book that's like a novel. For podcasting, like, I don't make much at all. Like, I'm still a newbie in this, even though I've been doing this almost a year. But I have met some of the most fantastic people and had some of the most wonderful conversations. I've learned so much, specifically in the last 4 months, just talking to other individuals who have been doing this or have different experiences than I do. And not everything is perfect. There are days where you have to there's days where you might have to deal with somebody who's negative, but I know one day, especially if we become more popular, that's going to happen. I'm going to piss off somebody at some point, no matter how hard I try, and I'm going to have to deal with that when that happens. But
so I had that day. Well, I have those days occasionally, because I put my work out commercially, and everyone's like, blah, 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 blah. I have opinions, even though I haven't read the book, but my opinions are important. Blah, 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 blah. Here's what you did wrong. And it's quite like, it's that whole thing about a lot of, and I'm going to generalize here, but a lot of white male nerds have they've forgotten that being combative is not a personality. Like, being overly combative online is not an excuse for having a personality.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've been very lucky throughout my gaming life. I've had a few negative experiences, all of which were, yes, straight white males. But for the most part, like, there are a lot of positive experiences. There's a lot of wonderful human beings that I've played with and have podcasted with or have had on the show or been on their show. And that's what makes it worth it. Like, I put
Yeah.
in so many hours for this podcast and make literal sense on the hour, but it's worth it because it's fun and I get to have these conversations.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, I wouldn't be, unless I produced these books, I wouldn't be speaking to you. I wouldn't have spoken to a lot of other people as well. Like, that's the really enjoyable part. And yeah, I agree. I've had some pretty shitty days. I've had people complain that, and my favorite. Would you like to know my favorite complaint?
Sure.
My favorite complaint was someone on Ian's World, like Morris's unofficial board games forum, which is generally a pretty positive place. Like, have to be honest. So most of the conversations that I've had in there were generally positive, but you always get a few people who, again, think that being combative is an excuse for not having a personality. Who said, "Oh well, there's a copy edit mistake at the top of one of the tables." On the first version of Brightlance we ever released, there were two gaping errors, which I picked up within half an hour of releasing it, and then just like got rid of them. But whatever. Anyway, he decided that because there was a copy edit on the top of one of the tables, and you didn't get a second. Wait, let me get this right. You didn't get a second attack at 5th level. You got it at 6th level. The book was invalid, and I never should have written it. All 100 pages, completely invalid.
Okay.
So
rogues are invalid?
Well, yeah, right. Like every character class is invalid, and he's like, "But fighters get it," and I was like, "Yeah, but they're not a fighter. Yeah, it's not a fighter; it's a knight." And they're like, "But they should. Every other character gets it." I'm like, "Every other character? No,
that's not true."
Yeah, and they're like, "Well, the top of this table is incorrect," and I'm like, oh, "Man, are you looking for things to whine about? Because, like, honestly, you're telling me more about yourself than you are." Whenever anyone does that. Sorry, Karen.
At that point, it's like there are professional edited things that have been seen by dozens of eyes. Wizards of the Coast, for example. How many times have they put an errata out because they reworded something because it wasn't clear, or like possibly there was a typo? I'm sure there was a typo in one of their thousands of books that D&D has released.
There are numerous typos in the player's handbook.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and there's so many erratas that like fix wording and verbiage of things because of people like that trying to find every single mistake. And mistakes happen. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you look over it. It honestly doesn't. Having been a writer or having published things and had an editor look at things and like reread it and done over and over and over again, things slip up because that's how human brains work. Our brains accommodate for the words around them usually, and sometimes we miss the extra the, and there's plenty of like memes and things on the internet that's like, you didn't realize that this didn't have a number, or like you didn't realize there were 2 thes in the sentence after you read it, because your brain automatically just cuts it out because it's unnecessary information. And when you're editing a 115-page book or a 300-page novel or even a 20-page short story, like sometimes that happens.
But I like people. There's a lot of people that. Well, no, there aren't people that do that. There are people that like to use that as an excuse to invalidate you because they want to win an argument. Like, that's it. Like, all they want to do is win, and you're like, yeah, but you have no idea. Like, and people like that, especially. I live in fear of them. I have like anxiety, and one of these people that I live in. And the reason I work so hard on details and stuff is because I live in fear of these people. Like, I live in fear of people being like, "Oh, well, you misspelt the word 100 on page 73. On column 18 of page 73, you misspelled the word 100, and now all of it's invalid, and your book is terrible, and I'll give you a 1-star review."
Yeah, I run I've seen a couple of people, and this is in the specifically, I guess, D&D, but it's in TTRPG worlds in general,
Mhm.
where they use the number of years that they've been playing as an excuse to be a
Yes.
dick.
Yes.
So people have said multiple times, and like I think it's been said once to me,
Uh-huh.
but they're like, "Oh, well, this person's only been playing for 2 to 5 years, so what do they know?" And I'm like, "Okay." And then they start like the one person, I don't remember the exact situation, but they were like, I think they were arguing, and they're like, "Well, you're probably new to the game." I'm like, "No, I've been playing for 17 years. Thanks
Yeah.
though.
And
Try
they
again."
do that to women a lot. They do it mostly to women because
Yeah.
you're a girl. How could you know anything about D&D? Don't you know it's just for entitled sexist white nerds?
And I'm the first person to admit that I have a shitty memory. I will not remember specific lore details and little things that happen in
Yeah.
the game. I take notes for a reason. And my notes when I'm not for most of my games, my notes are meticulous. I can go through and find, okay, well, we were on the 12th day of this month of this year, and we spoke to these 4 people, and this is what happened. And I can like it'll take me a
Mhm.
bit to find it, but I will find those notes and tell you exactly what happened because I don't have a great memory.
And every
But that doesn't mean
and every
go ahead.
every DM that you know should call you a gift because players like that are just like they're the best. I have a couple of players like that in my current campaign, and I'm just like, oh, I love you people because I can be like I can as a DM I can be like shit, what was their name? You know, we met them there, and I can do like their character, I can do their voice, I can remember what they said, but for the life of me, I can't remember their name without checking through my notes. And what I could do is I could go through my 100 pages of of campaign notes looking for this person, or I
Yeah.
could just ask my players because generally they've got as good a grasp of it as I have.
Well, what's funny is, like, as a DM, I am the exact opposite, but as a player, I have meticulous notes. But, like, I've been playing since 2003,
Hmm.
so almost 18 years now, and I started in 3.5. I played dozens of TTRPGs. 5th edition is the main one that I usually play and that I'm the most comfortable with.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean I know I'm not always gonna be right. I know I'm gonna make mistakes. I honestly, like, until last year, I didn't know that counterspell didn't use your proficiency bonus. I think it's stupid that it
Wait,
doesn't.
wait, wait, wait,
I
wait.
will stand by that.
Wait, counterspell doesn't use your proficiency bonus,
Nope.
but it's an ability
It
check.
specific it specifically says add your magic ability or attribute or something like that.
But it doesn't.
It does not use it does not use its proficiency.
Oh my word!
I had no idea, and I fought that so hard because 'cause I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? No, that doesn't make any sense."
That,
And I failed that spell, like, 4 times because of not having the proficiency bonus. I will stand on this day in my games forever, you can use proficiency bonus and counterspell.
I've always done that because I thought that's how it was. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, you've taught me something today as well. That's amazing. I didn't realize that at all. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, I'm looking it up just to make sure that I'm not being a liar. It says it doesn't look like so the best counterspellers are bard because they can add half their proficiency bonus because of their ability jack of all trades. But the spell specifically says make an ability check with the caster spell casting ability to see if you counter a spell
That is
of 4th level or higher.
completely different to every other rule and in every other ability check in D&D.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
that's so thick.
I was like, "No, that's bullshit. What are you talking about?"
That's so arbitrary. Like I'm sure.
I got un I got so mad. It was probably bad. Like, I got unnaturally mad, and I knew I was unnaturally mad, but I'm just like, "No, you're a liar."
Yes, and I can understand why you would feel like that because I think I would feel exactly the same way. Oh,
But it's like a lot of things like that, and,
like I just when I
oh,
get
go
into
ahead.
situations like that, I just tend to pull rank, and it's a really shitty thing to do. People are there, so like, what about this? What about that? And you're like, I'm sorry, how many best-selling D&D books have you written? Because I've written like 2, and how many have you written?
I try not to pull anything personally. Like I'll mostly like I'll say, "Oh, I think it's this," or like if something happens in a game that I'm not, if I'm DMing, I'm just like, no, this is DM says, and this is how I'm ruling it. But if I'm not DMing, I'll say, DM, it's your call. I can look it up though after we're done, and we can figure it out because if it takes too long. So I let the DM do whatever they want to do, and then I will, without interrupting the game, I'll look up what the actual rules are. And for the most part, that helps.
Yeah, but don't misunderstand. I would never do that at a table because that's a shitty thing to do as a player and as a DM. Right? That would just be I'm more thinking about people who are complaining about the stuff you've written, like, and complaining about the particular style of something, because I can and that's the equivalent of me going like, "Oh, shut up, man!" like it's my polite way of telling you that I don't care about your opinion and you were wrong 15 minutes ago and you're still talking. So yeah, I do that when I've run out of things to say to people who are complaining. But at a table, no, God no, of course. Like I'd never do that, like ever.
Well, so I'll bring up how long I played if it's asked. So like people will go, oh, how long have you been playing? And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been playing for like 2 to 3 years. And like I was like, oh, I've been playing for like 6 years, and all my friends have been playing for less than me, and I'm so excited. And I'm just like, about that. But I don't like to say the number because then people like sometimes it automatically gets a negative connotation because of the people who were like that. And not everybody is bad, but there are those people who've played, like, I played 3rd edition, I played 1st edition, advanced D&D, and this is the right way to play and nobody else knows how to play it. And I'm like, first off, fuck you. Second off, let people enjoy their game.
Third, fuck you.
Third off, fuck you. It's like if it's in your table and you all want to play that way, then play that way as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
But don't go attack other people for the way that they play.
Yeah, like what's the win condition of D&D? That everybody has a good time. That's it. Like that is the win condition for a game of D&D. And no one, and I've yet to come up with a better one. It's not about gaining XP. It's not about, like, if your aim is to gain XP, great, go and gain XP. If your aim is to tell an awesome story, great, tell an awesome story. A game can like, it can have all of those different objectives in a game, but the key is that everybody's enjoying themselves. Like, and I will occasionally go off at people. I have been known on the internet to occasionally have a strong opinion. So you may find me on Facebook. You may find me on Facebook occasionally complaining at people doing super optimized characters. Not because I dislike super optimized characters, but I think because I think it's always useful to remember that the characters are characters first and murder spreadsheets second. And and in my opinion, I think, totally my opinion, I think that you should put, like, who is this person first, and then put your stats together, rather than somebody else who is like, oh, I want to play this, which means I have to do this and this subclass. And I'm like, yeah, but mate, that's not really a person. That's a spreadsheet.
1000%. Yes.
I mean, come on, don't get me wrong. You want to have a character that does stuff. You want to have a character that can achieve, that can have the badass moment in D&D. You want to have the kick-ass archer, the ace swordsman. And I get that. That's awesome. Like, please, God, play all of those characters. But start with a concept of the character first. So say, like, oh, he's a blind swordsman with a single-edged blade who goes through the land righting wrongs. Great. Well, you've just, that's Ziotachi. But also, that's an amazing concept. How do you create that? Do you play them as a fighter? Do you play them as if you said to me, how would I play that character? You'd say, like, oh, well, you could play a Kensei, or you could play a fighter, or you could play a fighter with the unarmored feat. Like, how do you want to go with it? Like, where do you see their progression being? But you have to start with concept first, as opposed to people who are just like, yeah, I want to play a super killer class. So I thought I'd play like a level 5 monk crossed with I want to play a hexblade crossed with 2 levels of assassin because then I can get that. And I'm just like, dude, that's a war game. Like I've played Warhammer 40,000. This is exactly what you do for Warhammer 40,000 because you're trying to create a murder machine.
Yeah.
And D&D characters.
My thing is like
Yeah, sorry.
My thing is like if it's a role play focus, then sure, but have like you said, have a reason for it. I play a really overpowered monk, but I didn't build her overpowered. I purposely have her with a flaw that gets her in a lot of fucking trouble because that's what is the amusing part to me about playing her. Sure, I love that I can hit hard and I can do a lot of damage, and that part's fantastic. But the fact that she doesn't think before acting, the fact that she lets her emotions take over and then she rushes in and fights, especially when her friends or family or children are in danger, that almost got her killed multiple times. And I've played characters that suck at fighting. I played a cleric once, and personally, I'm not a huge fan of clerics. Personally, I know that a lot of people
Nikki,
love playing clerics and
Nikki, that's fine.
have
Clerics
fun.
aren't a big fan of you either.
Probably not.
You say that until you're bleeding out, and then you're like, I need a cleric, I need healing, and they're like, yeah, but you weren't nice enough to me, so I'm going to hold your life to ransom.
I guess I should clarify the way I worded that. I am a fan of clerics as other people playing them. I am not a fan of personally playing one. But I played a knowledge cleric who I purposely did not make intelligent.
Okay.
Because she was she had a high wisdom. She was great at healing, but her whole thing was she was a knowledge cleric because she was a half orc raised by a Githyanki priest, and we made the Githyanki a priest of the knowledge god. So she was raised of this. And she's like, oh, therefore I'm a knowledge cleric when she became a cleric. And she has like 7 languages, but her intelligence was like a 12, I think. Because of her background in her class, she got all these languages. So I purposely made it so that like she would mistranslate things because she wasn't like an 18 intelligence or anything. So she would know of the language, but she kept like intermixing them as she was translating. She's like, oh, this means cake or death. I'm not really sure.
And that's perfect.
Which one? And I loved role playing her. She was such a fun person to role play.
Yeah.
Hated playing her though.
Yeah. I had one of my favorite characters that he's never played in a full campaign, but he pops up in like a one shot. So he's having his own little campaign, but in other people's one shots. So he's like the Hulk. He wanders into other people's stories and then just kind of wanders off at the end. But he's a half orc cleric who refuses to use weapons. He absolutely refuses to use weapons. Like he won't unless he refuses to do. He'll refuse to not fight, but he'll refuse to use a weapon against a living thing, which does mean if there's undead coming at them, he's just like, lend me your mace, and then he just goes to work on them. But he's a big, burly half-orc cleric who will just, at worst, punch people in the face. But what it forced me to do, because he's not trying to kill in combat, it forced me to be very creative in what I did. Like I had turns where I was like, okay, well, what do I do? So like we've had situations where we had a fighter character who was like, I step forwards and hit them with my sword. I'm like, great. And I was like, well, what would Vayan do? Because he doesn't do that. Like the option of walking forward and attacking with a weapon was removed. So I had to become much more creative in what I did. So like Vayan would do stuff like I grab the white dragon's head and I hold it away from everybody else. So when it releases its breath weapon, it goes up into the ceiling. Like it's not nice. And it's not a combat action. Like it's not like, and then I hit him with a mace. I didn't do any damage to the white dragon at all by doing that. But what I did do is save an awful lot of people from doing that. And that's what Vayan does. And he'll occasionally get so mad that he'll punch people in the face because he is still a half orc at heart. But he won't use a weapon. And just playing those characters, like in other situations, like he'll just stand in front of people and just be like, hit me instead. Like, you know, just hide behind me. And he'll just get hit instead. And it creates so much, it makes you think in a different way.
Yeah, that's it's always interesting to come up with different alternatives to how to handle situations. I do that a lot with my bard
Hmm.
in the Behold Clearlight actual play. So there have been multiple times where we're fighting monsters and they are literal just like beasts that we are under the assumption just want to kill us. And she just is like, can I persuade him not to eat me? And then the DM's like, "What?" And I'm like, he's like, "You don't talk the same language." I'm like, "I'm gonna message him, and when I message him, I can technically use my ability to speak in a language that everybody understands. So
Yeah.
I'm going to use that and message him and say, 'Please don't eat us.'" And he's like, "Okay, roll me a persuasion check." And I went College of Eloquence,
Mhm.
so I was like, "Okay, so I rolled a 3, um, but that's a 10, so it's a dirty 20." He's like, "You can't roll below a 20." I'm like, "Not on persuasion." He's like, "Good to know."
I think
And it's just like every time I'm like, can I talk my way out of this?"
yeah, and or even how do I not fight my way out of this, or how do I fight my way out of this in a way that someone doesn't get hurt? Like giving your character that limitation, that one limitation, works really well. It only works if the rest of the party agree with it, though. Like you couldn't run. It would be very interesting to run a whole bunch of priests like Vayan. Like it would be very interesting to run like a pacifist cleric party.
Mhm.
I don't know if it'd work. I don't know how it'd work, but like that's what I mean. Like that's what I mean. Like play your characters. Don't play your murder spreadsheet.
And it's really strange for me because I usually do play the one that rushes in and fights. Like that's my normal go-to. So I love playing the talker, but even then, they still are like I very rarely ever try to talk my way out of a fight.
Mhm.
But this world we're in is really deadly. So I'm just like,
So
I'm like,
so
let's not die.
we've been playing. We've been playtesting in preparation for the launch of the Dark Peaks Deepmore, which is the first full rule book. So it's got a full set of players. It's got a full set of players rules and a full set of GM's rules, and there's a monster manual at the back of it as well. So in like 100 full color pages with original art, you get an entire game, which we're really proud of. And like I said, it's probably coming out in about 3 or 4 weeks. In preparation for that, we've been doing some playtesting, and the thing that really strikes me about Deepmore is the way that you change your play style as soon as you realize how dangerous it is. Like we're playing in an environment, and Deepmore is far more dangerous than D&D, and it is deliberately more dangerous than D&D. So what you end up doing is you end up approaching problems in a completely different way. So like we'll have conversations. We're like, what are we going to do? And often we genuinely discuss running away. We genuinely think like, is it worth it? Like we could well die doing this. Like how many times in D&D have you had a conversation where you're like, do we actually want to do this given the danger involved?
Yeah.
But in Deepmore, you're just like, we could, we could not, or we could run around, or we could collapse the roof on them, or something. So increasing the danger level, especially of combat, you can put your players in a situation where they have to think a little bit more creatively, where the go-to isn't, and now we murder everyone. The go-to can be, and now we run away or we go around them. There was a situation in one of our playtesting where we ran into a particularly deadly monster, and we probably could have taken it. We probably could have, but to be honest, we probably at least one of us would have died doing it. So in the interest of self-preservation, we were just like, what do we do? And we were like, this isn't our aim, this isn't our quest objective, this isn't what we're here to do. Let's just go around it. So we created a diversion and then ran away. And then on the way out of this particular room, one of the players said, well, what happens if they're there on the way back? And we were just like, we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. And we haven't
Yeah, pretty much.
come to it yet, so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen.
that actually has happened in our game too. So on my Friday game that's not recorded, we always run in, don't run away. Like we're just very much, no, we'll be fine. We're like we're at that point where we're like we're pretty much just gods. What are you talking about? Even though that's not true, and we all know it. But my character literally doesn't care.
Isn't
Like
that,
she was told, like if you go do this, you'll probably die. She's like, let's do it. It'll be fun.
this is the keyless line. We're gods, we're golden gods, right? You watch
Yeah,
Critical? Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
She might have that complex a little bit. Well, so in our Friday game, they were told there was whispers about this inclusive fight club that my character had no idea about, and she is the
Ooh.
one that is in the regular fight club. So she's
Ooh.
like, "What's this about a fight club? I want in." So she immediately goes and finds her like guy who signs her up for things. And he like looks super suspicious. He's like, you don't want into that. I'm like, why not? He's like, because that's not the kind of fights that you do, meaning it's a fight to the death,
Yeah.
not a fight to like just whoever wins.
Yeah.
And she's like, but how much is the pot though? He's like, it's a lot. And I'm like, then I want it.
So for our non-critical role listeners, we should probably explain what the Golden Gods reference is.
Oh,
Um,
so there was
just
there was a
don't ruin the
scene.
surprise. Don't ruin the surprise at the end of it, because it's wonderful.
There was a scene where the druid decides that we're practically gods and dives off of a cliff.
Yes, and 1,000-foot cliff, saying
1,000-foot cliff.
saying we're gods, we're golden gods, and then like, what's the worst that could happen?
And then being very surprised when she finds out.
Yes,
It was so funny.
it really was thoroughly. There's a wonderful animation of that as well. If you go on YouTube, you can find the animation of that, which makes it even funnier.
So where can we find you on the interwebs?
Ooh, you can find us because I recently got some new social media software. So you can find me on. Get yourself ready. Be excited, everyone. You can find me on @Tails Peaks, which is all one word. So it's TALESPEAKS. @Tails Peaks on Twitter. I'm mostly on there. You can search for The Dark Peaks on Facebook, and you'll find like regular product updates and writing updates and general information about what's going on. And you can find us on Instagram as well. We have an Instagram page. If you want to talk to me directly, find me on Twitter, because I'm mostly on Twitter and I chat the most on Twitter. So you can tweet at me. If you follow us, by the way, I'm sure that I can arrange for a discount on one of our books. So if you feel like buying one of our books and you want to come and have a chat, hit me up on Twitter and I will send you a discount code to save 25% off the cost of one of our books.
Wonderful. So thank you again for recording with me a second time. It was lovely having you.
Thank you very much. Oh, I was just going to say I would love to chat to you again, especially when we release Deepmore, because it's got a lot to offer people, and I'd love to talk some more about it.
For sure. And everybody check them out in the description down below. You can find all their information and links down there. You can talk to me on Twitter @BeholderToNoOne or on Facebook @BeholderToNoOne. And you can find us wherever podcasts can be found. You can also check out our website created by my husband, Keith, at beholdertonoone.com. So thanks again for listening and have a great day. Bye.